Yes. So there was a moment from Tuesday night's joint address to Congress that raised a lot of speculation about whether some Supreme Court justices are loyal to the U.S. Constitution or to this guy. Take a look.
Thank you again. Thank you again. Won't forget.
Some people were freaking out because he was saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. I said maybe they crossed in the gentleman's room and he said, thank you for letting me go first. I don't know. But hours after that, conservative Chief Justice Roberts sided with liberal justices against the sitting president, who is cutting off $2 billion in foreign aid. Most of the rage from MAGA supporters, however, was directed not towards him, but towards Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who also sided with liberals. So does it give you some hope? Are you surprised that they turned on her? Suddenly they were saying she's in... Now, what are the letters? Because I keep messing with... DEI.
The host of The View had a dynamic discussion about the Supreme Court decision and its political backlash, particularly focusing on Justice Amy Coney Barrett's ruling against Trump's attempt to freeze $2 billion in foreign aid. At the center of this controversy is Justice Amy Coney Barrett, a staunch conservative jurist appointed by Trump, who joined Chief Justice John Roberts and the liberal justices in a narrow 5-4 decision. The ruling underscored the foundational principle of separation of powers, affirming that the executive branch cannot override Congress's authority over federal spending. While the decision was a constitutional reaffirmation of Congress' control over budget allocations, it was met with intense backlash from Trump supporters. Many within the MAGA movement, who once championed Barrett's appointment, turned on her, labeling her a RINO for what they perceived as an act of betrayal. This reaction reflects the increasingly personal nature of Trump-era conservatism, where political loyalty often eclipses traditional conservative legal philosophy. The controversy surrounding Barrett's decision reveals deepening tensions within the conservative movement and raises critical questions about the role of the judiciary in an era of heightened political division.
They were accusing her. Now, she's been sitting justice for 5 years. I guess they just realized she was female. I mean, because,
Well, she's been voting for Trump, mostly.
So
now she didn't, and then they turn it. You have to be 100% loyal to the king or they get mad.
Well,
you're supposed to be loyal to the Constitution as a Supreme Court justice.
So what do you
loyal
think?
to the president.
Well, I just didn't think I would live to see the day that Amy Coney Barrett was declared a RINO by MAGA. This so often happens.
Her Amy Coney Barrett.
I mean, this is just wild to me, and I deal with this a lot, where my positions have just not fundamentally changed, but the parties did. And she was right from a conservative constitutional standpoint in this ruling. It is about the separation of powers. It's about the fact that Congress has the power of the purse. These were congressionally appropriated funds. The executive branch, we wouldn't want Barack Obama to just willy-nilly cancel congressionally appropriated funds. You should want the same.
Alyssa Farah, Griffin's defense of Justice Amy Coney Barrett's ruling was a direct rebuke of the MAGA movement's growing obsession with loyalty over constitutional integrity. She made it clear that Barrett, a justice with impeccable conservative credentials, was not betraying the right, but rather upholding the very principles of conservative jurisprudence, principles that demand strict adherence to the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law. Farah Griffin forcefully rejected the idea that justices should act as rubber stamps for the president who appointed them, warning that this mindset corrupts the judiciary and undermines the foundational tenets of American democracy. She exposed the hypocrisy of MAGA supporters who once praised Barrett as a legal powerhouse, but now discard her simply for following conservative legal doctrine rather than bending to Trump's will. This, she argued, is the real betrayal, not Barrett's ruling, but the right-wing faction that has abandoned conservative values in favor of authoritarian allegiance. In a time when judicial independence is under siege by blind partisanship, Farah Griffin's stance was a bold and necessary reminder that conservatism should be rooted in principles, not political cultism.
I guess got the most out of affirmative action, and people don't talk about that. So I think the MAGA crowd is now also saying, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion applies to white women too.
Yeah.
And I think that's surprising to people. But back to the court, you know, I to Alyssa's point, I think people are encouraged, somewhat encouraged by the Supreme Court ruling because it was 5-4. And they said, you know, there's executive overreach here. There are three branches, equal branches of government, the legislative branch that has the power of the purse, that's Congress, and then you have the judicial branch, which the Supreme Court is part of, and then, of course, the executive branch with Donald Trump. And this executive branch, Donald Trump, is trying to say, you know what, even though Congress approved $2 billion of aid, by the way, a lot of it has already been, the work has been done, they just haven't been paid. Now, the executive branch is saying, no, Congress, we're not paying it. That is executive overreach to the extreme. And so I'm not surprised that Amy Coney Barrett did this, but the Supreme Court could have done more, everybody. The Supreme Court could have said, pay the bill. They didn't do that.
No,
what they did instead is they kicked it back to the federal, district court judge, circuit court judge, and what they said was, you have to clarify what obligations the government must fulfill.
Sunny Hostin, as the View's resident legal expert, approached Justice Amy Coney Barrett's ruling from a strictly constitutional and legal standpoint, reinforcing the idea that the Supreme Court's role is to uphold the law, not serve political interests. Sunny Hostin delivered a sharp, unapologetic defense of constitutional law, making it clear that Justice Amy Coney Barrett's ruling was not an act of defiance against Trump, but simply the correct legal decision. She forcefully argued that the Constitution explicitly grants Congress, not the President, the power of the purse, and any attempt by the executive branch to override that authority is nothing short of an abuse of power. Hostin condemned the MAGA movement's hypocrisy, calling out its members for celebrating Barrett's conservative credentials when she was appointed, only to turn on her the moment she upheld a fundamental principle of American democracy. Their outrage, she argued, exposes a deeper truth. Trump loyalists don't care about conservatism, constitutional law, or judicial integrity. They care about unchecked power and absolute loyalty. While she acknowledged that Barrett made the right call, Hostin criticized the Supreme Court for not going far enough, arguing that it should have outright mandated the payments rather than kicking the case back to the lower courts for further debate. In her view, the real problem isn't just Trump's overreach. It's the dangerous precedent set when the highest court in the land refuses to take a firm stance against executive overreach, allowing political gains to erode the rule of law.
Abide by the Constitution and how they interpret it. So I hate when it's
this is her job.
This is her job.
Yeah.
And by the way, they can't just say I voted this way like Congress. They have to tell you why they voted that way and how they got there by showing their work. But my understanding is that the reason it was a little bigger than just kicking it down the can is they are now going to have to pay the money out, and they can't undo that once it's done.
That's not what the decision, that's not what the order was. It was a very brief order. Which was unsigned, which is typical of these brief orders. What it said only that the trial judge who had ordered the government to resume payments should clarify what obligations the government must fulfill. And where really, I know this is getting weedsy because I'm a legal nerd, but what you really need to, but what you really need to look at is Justice Alito's dissent, which basically says, this is ridiculous. We don't have to pay it. What do we have to pay? And so, and it is. It's unconstitutional, and that's Alito. So this is not something that we should be that excited about because it could go right back to the Supreme Court.
But she did the right thing.
Yeah, and I did want to know. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to talk about something else, but whatever.
Do it.
Well, just to wrap this up, listen. I'm glad when anybody puts some thought into stuff getting done. Now, they've kicked it back to these guys. And this judge will say, here's why, and this is what it's going to be. Because the judge said, you can't do that.
The backlash from MAGA supporters over Justice Amy Coney Barrett's ruling exposed the glaring hypocrisy of a movement that claims to champion conservative judicial values, but abandons them the moment they conflict with Trump's interests. The hosts of The View wasted no time in calling out the double standard, with Joy Behar delivering a biting critique by sarcastically suggesting that MAGA supporters had just realized Barrett is a woman, implying that their anger is steeped in misogyny and selective outrage rather than genuine legal disagreement. Whoopi Goldberg took it a step further, bluntly stating that MAGA's loyalty test has nothing to do with conservatism, originalism, or the Constitution. It's about blind allegiance to Trump and punishing anyone who dares to step out of line. The fact that a justice as staunchly conservative as Barrett could be so swiftly discarded underscores the cult-like nature of Trump's base, where even judicial independence is seen as a betrayal if it doesn't serve his immediate political goals. This meltdown over a single ruling is not just about Barrett, it's a warning sign of a movement that has completely abandoned principle in favor of authoritarian loyalty. Thank you for tuning in and engaging with this discussion. If you enjoyed this content and want to stay updated on more insightful analysis, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support means the world, and we can't wait to bring you more thought-provoking conversations. See you next time. On